in Hackney Wick.
Hello everyone, Mickey here, Mickey Rishi on Instagram. We founded this decentralized arts organisation focused on arts, music and fashion. We chose Hackney Wick because it is the cultural hub where all of our friends live, so we really wanted to focus on like the real community who creates arts from the grassroots and incubate them from grassroots level up to gallery level and hopefully into the decentralized ecosphere.
We're joined by Lindsay. Lindsay, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you've got to this point in your journey in the fashion and digital space?
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay and I'm the co-founder of Formless. So we are a virtual accessories marketplace that trade and curate digital-only wearables through AI-enabled delivery. And we aim to make digital wearables to suit to everyone's daily lives through like social medias and blend into your like say digital identities on NFTs and like avatars, like a lot of things. We want to make it interesting. And yeah, I think we're going to talk more about that later.
Give her a round of applause, everybody. Absolutely fantastic. Now, if anybody uses social media, you'll know the next person very well because she has a very, very prolific exposure on different social media channels. I know her from LinkedIn, of which I spend 90% of my time using all the time, getting financial leads. But this lady basically has done a wonderful job in promoting the industry. Give her a round of applause, Khadi.
Thank you. That's such a very kind introduction, and I'll take it, thank you. So I'm Khadeen James, I'm the founder of The Immersive Kind, and I've been working in the digital fashion space since 2017, producing avatars, virtual worlds, and metaverse experiences. And it's a real thrill to be here today with T. Big up, Never Fade, ArtSect, love what you're doing at Formless. Such a thrill to be a part of this amazing community and to be with my dear friend Eileen from Asset House, who we've been working with on a London Fashion Week activation. So really thrilled to be here tonight. Thank you. Eileen, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Aileen Harville. I'm from Dublin, Ireland. Over just for the gig, Mickey. So yes, I come from the traditional luxury fashion industry. Back in 2018, we launched Virtual Showroom. We were the first virtual showroom, and in fact, first company to ever bring augmented reality and holograms to Fashion Week with fit models. We've progressed from that, and the new platform is called Asset House, and it's looking at sort of interoperable cohesion for virtual assets. So really the kind of cogs of how these bigger digital fashion purveyors and creators are able to actually distribute and publish and track their visual assets, whether it's commercially or creatively. So just recently, this week, London Fashion Week, Khadeen and myself launched Fringe, London Fashion Week. It's been great. We had a number of on-schedule designers, which makes us very unique in the space. So we debuted their London Fashion Week presentations in the metaverse simultaneously, and we also carried out some of their citywide celebrations also. So that's enough for me.
Now, no place would be without it's Mr. T. So Mr. T, tell everybody your full name and how you've, from your journeys from Soho, have led you to this part of the world now.
Thanks, Balbir, big brother. My name is Terence Ayuk Eben. I'm co-founder of Never Fade Factory. I'm a social impact entrepreneur. Started Never Fade Factory in 2017 in Soho, across the street from Palace and Supreme. with a very clear motivation to become a accelerator, leader when it comes to intersecting the creative arts, when it comes to leading social conversation around mental well-being, around inclusion and diversity, around sensitive subjects in general, which at the end of the day, it seems like creativity always has an ability to influence. It's shown time and time again. Movies influence our social action all the time. That's why governments give big grants to big movies or small movies. Having said that, the collaboration here with ArtSec Gallery, ArtSec DAO as a community just allows us to interface with the digital world, with people like Kaylene and Aileen and Lingji, who are part of the future, whether we like it or not. We are going to become more and more digital. It's already happening through social media and our phones. We will begin to develop these digital identities, whether it's just for fun or for trade or economic reasons, which most likely will instigate the race towards the metaverses when people start seeing how much they can generate from having a digital twin. So we are the gateway to that process, that coexistence between IRL and digital, and that's what we want to talk about tonight, and hopefully enough people are interested to ask questions and we can guide your interest. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'll start the ball rolling with the first question to our panelists. And that question is a very, very simple one. How does an artist get their work digitally created? And what tips would you give?
Okay. Okay, so I probably work more in the fashion sphere. So there are a number of sort of software that you can start using, Clo, Bronzeware, etc. And this is where you can start mapping out what your design is going to be, and then taking it to the next step. I suppose this is more Kadine's area. I'm probably more from the pattern cutting, from the traditional design, what happens, the process there, and then helping those brands move into that digital sphere with the right partners and the right technology around that. So.
Right. So basically I was from the creator perspective. I started as a designer from fashion, and I know all the pattern cutting stuff. And then after 2019, after I went to Royal College of Art, I started to explore more digital technologies around 3D. Then I started to realize that there's a lot more tools that we can use. For example, like if you do jewelry, you'll use Rhino. If you do like molding, like to 3D printing, you might use ZBrush, right? And also, a lot of people now, they like to blend a lot of their creations with animation stuff. So they will use Cinema 4D, and most recently, there's like Unreal Engine that can bring MetaHuman to life, which is somewhere that we're gonna show here. So there's a lot of tools, and for me to give tips to young designers is to know and try as much as softwares that you can use, and then that way you can form a unique perspective of how you can implement it in your own work and then show your design identity. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
So how do creators get into the digital?
Yes.
Cool. Like I suppose if you look at the history of art, the old paintbrush stuff, these techniques are kind of rudimental, but each time that a cubism comes out, or a surrealism, or one of these periods, it's because of a philosophical and energy that they put into this object or the tool. And then coming back, now we've got AR, digital, 3D printed, but like the concept's still the same. If you're passionate and you want to create, dive into these new tools and let this new expression come out. And I think a lot of this new art, the new NFT art, the new decentralized art, the digital fashion, has got a lot to do with identity actually. If you look at old 90s art, the one we're just coming out of, it was very like capitalistically brash. Damien Hirst flicking ink dots at £1 million canvas, £10 million canvas, and I think lots of these like formless, immersive kind, your journey and your different avatars and your identities, certain muses from the world around in Hackney Wick, the non-binary people, all of the different ways they emanate their new character. I think it's about using these new technologies to paint that brush. Because if we don't, actually oppositely, if we just allow like Amazon or Snapchat to paint your identity in AR, yeah, that's not going to be like a very well thought through persona. But if we can allow that to express from some of the amazing people who are around, we might build a cool world.
Yeah, picking up on what Nikki said, it's like the early stage of the adoption of blockchain. You know, we've seen cryptocurrency flourish and then downheaval, and then NFTs came into that blockchain sort of economic space. And the proof is in the pudding. You had a few artists who normally would have had to go through an art gallery or through some kind of agency to get their art out there and to people who have the expendable income to pay for it, but instead skipped that step and went straight to minting platforms to generate revenue from their art piece with also ownership of IP. So the proof is in the pudding in terms of how it could benefit, you know, a startup or upstart artist who would struggle to be centralized and going through the traditional methods. In terms of how do you get in, I think there's really no better way than what we're trying to express or what we are expressing here, which is be part of a community. Because it's like practicing circular economy. If you're in a room with an intersection of other creative arts or other individuals, then it's more likely for some of those skills to rub onto you. At the moment, there's no real school per se for metaverse in terms of how we will know it in a business sense. There's no real academic program per se. I mean, there are digital technology programs and digital programs, but teaching you a specific formula where you can scale, there's none. So it's experimental, and there's no better place in method, I think, to do that in terms of transferring skills and building community, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
Thank you. Now, I believe very much in interreactivity with the audience. So, who would like to ask the first question to the panel? Come this way, young man. If you can just say your name and your question to the panel.
I like the young man. That's really good. No, so it's Robert Alex Smith. Hello panel. So the question is, if you were to suggest one piece of art in the metaverse or an NFT or a digital piece of art that we could all go and look at tonight after this wonderful event is over, to inspire us or perhaps to buy, what would you recommend? And you can't recommend any of your own art. Recommend it, I suppose. Anyway, that's my question.
Very good question, Alex. Stand where you are.
Okay, artwork. Obviously, yeah, all of the artists tonight, immersive kind. So, you know, the idea of creating something that has value that you want to own, like, still remains the same. You know, the metaverse isn't this other construct where you put a new value on something. You have to really want it, and the person who's made it has had to really had inspiration to create it as well. And that's something that even today we launched a generative AI exhibition in the metaverse today on Fringe, and it's an actual fashion photographer influenced by generative AI in his work, even though the work pre-generative AI was very surreal and almost simulated. So I'm not going to tell you what to look at and buy. I think it's very a personal journey, what you're going to invest in, what you're going to absolutely fall in love with and purchase.
I think formless, absolutely, buy anything that's on the formless marketplace. I would definitely recommend looking at everything that Linksy and the team are building, everything that Mickey and Never Fade are up to with the artists that they're representing and supporting, and also with the immersive kind in our community. Zombo Jang, Sapiens, some amazing artists that I've been very lucky and privileged to work with over the years. And also this evening, we're showcasing some of the future art from the Future Fashion show that we've brought into the metaverse. I think I echo what you're saying. I think it's about your personal taste, but I would definitely recommend looking at what the team at Formless are doing, because I think it's super futuristic and I adore it.
Thank you so much. I think this community, like everyone, is interconnected, and a lot of people that we all grew went to school together, and then we graduated, and then it's all part of this, and everyone is growing their techniques. So yeah, definitely check out all of our platforms. And I can give you like a more direct answer, like if I'm gonna recommend one. So you can go check out like Artifact. I think most of people, like if you are like a sneaker lover, or you all know them. So they got acquired by Nike, like I think last year or the year before, and then they did like amazing generative arts around sneakers, and then everything like you saw today, they actually did quite early on. So it's a really good, I think it's a really good platform and brand to check it out.
I love loads of stuff. Last year there was the Underground Sistine Chapel in France. I forget the artist's name, but they went into this underground sewer, painted like a neo-Sistine Chapel, and then split it up into micro parts and sold it. I wish I bought one, because they went up a lot, but that was gorgeous. Like a lot of local, I suppose you've got Jivamere and Wesley, who've done some of the physical fashions tonight, and Cherry, wherever they are. Like they do really cool physical fashion, upcycled again, sustainable materials. What else is around? Like you said, Artifact. I'm addicted to everything on dematerialized that comes out. I was like, just because I'm like a digital fashion collector. So I love all of that stuff. In fact, all of the digital fashion marketplaces, I kind of love them all. So even if I haven't got money, I'm always looking at the stuff and like conceptualizing, like, what is this? How's it going to work? Can I have it? Can we put it in the gallery? So yeah, digital fashion's exploding. Super cool stuff.
Maybe the recent Nick Knight project was quite interesting. Had some phenomenal things in there. Jessica James, which you worked with, her work is really strong. Has some Afrocentricity in there. David Gersh, who's one of our partners for NFT. So I like his story, because before he got into NFT art, yes, he had done a bit of art, but he knew nothing about NFTs. And now, I won't say what he's generating, but it's 7 figures, and this has all happened over a space of 2 years. So it's a good example of if you really want to, as an unknown artist, instead of using the traditional centralized galleries, agencies, etc., you can get on the blockchain and use NFTs scale.
I hope that's answered some of the questions from the panel itself. Whatever bit of NFT or artwork that appeals to you, have a look at it, and then basically, if you've got questions about that piece of work, ask somebody. That's the only bit of advice that I can give anybody. Just double check, make sure it's something that you feel comfortable with, and it's within your price range as well. Okay, the next question to the panel. Who would like to ask the next question to the panel?
Oh,
Come this way, yeah, come this way.
Hello, I'm Akshita. My question is regarding social impact in NFT. How would you link and categorize, how would you create social impact through NFTs and Web3?
Good question.
That's a very, very good question. Okay, Kenneth, would you like to start with this one?
Actually, very straightforward. And we actually believe that this will become popularized, the idea of tokenomics, being able to create shared ownership through the blockchain contract, which is already built in a way, NFTs. And if you look at some of the most successful early NFT projects, they kind of had social impact built in there. That they were promising their members or collectors that they would give a certain percentage, or they would support a particular project. That's where the utility behind the NFT was. And the whole idea of having more and more utility attached to the value of the NFT beyond it just being an art piece is going to be more popularized using tokens.
Yeah, I love this crypto economic question. It comes to the same as all crypto economics to me, and you flip upside down what is normal capitalism power structure. So if you look at fashion, LVMH or Zara or any monolith that owns everything, and their war crimes from the factories that produce it all the way to the sales distribution lines that consume the public, and crypto and DAO. Not NFTs, when people think talking about NFTs, they think you're talking about monkeys and some other stuff, but decentralizing the art in this ownership of the commons way. So if fashion owned its building, which is what we're trying to do, and then all of its collectors, all of its creators from digital to physical, all co-own this vehicle together, and its portfolio and its historical record, we argue that would be just a bit more of a better evolution from the old hierarchical power structures and how they work using capital management structure and the art portfolio itself. If you look at the British Museum, you could argue in that very capitalist, in the very crypto-economic sense that you've got tainted money and then over a period of time put it into high capital objects, monnets and nice stuff, and then put it in the gallery and kind of set the precedent of Western hierarchical power using this vast amount of capitalism. So hopefully in the future, if enough DAOs and different communities sprung up, arguably if hip-hop owned itself in the 80s, we might not have this that we have now, like Sony and MGM using urban music to perpetuate capitalism. Yeah. So all about ownership of the commons and our creative structure.
I'll answer from the utility and accessibility part. So NFT, a lot of people that now they own, right? And then they own this kind of 2D or 3D NFTs. What we do is to create it to transferable to multiple channels that you can use it in your daily life. So say if you purchase one NFT accessories, and then how can you use it? Maybe you can use it on the Zoom chat or Snapchat that you can actually try on your body. So this gives a lot of kind of a meaning and engagement into this kind of belonging to this this piece. So this is what we're trying to do, and then engage into everyone's daily life, so make you feel really part of it.
I suppose again coming from the fashion industry, looking at provenance, raw materials, sort of supply chain aspect of how blockchain can really impact that, and how some production is outsourced, that these outsourced groups of really talented people who are potentially offshore manufacturers can assemble themselves into a group and self-fund, and that they are able to profit out of their part of the supply chain. So to me that's a really interesting part.
Yeah, but how? Sorry, did you elaborate that?
How?
Give us an example.
I would love to give you an example. This is having worked in the fashion
One
industry.
ideal example, if it doesn't
An
exist,
ideal-
how,
I suppose-
how would that
yeah,
work?
so-
Sort of democratize, way decentralized. Yeah.
Yeah, so with many larger fashion designers, manufacturing is outsourced to other countries, whether it's Turkey or China, and even in when we're looking at the Savage Fenty and looking at kind of the workforce around that they're the most probably they don't rank very highly. So with NFTs, if we're going to make the supply chain more transparent and that it's on a ledger, and we have an NFC, a non-fungible certificate of provenance, that those elements of blockchain can start building up into sort of I suppose, entities that are more self-regulated, not self-regulated, self-funding potentially. But, you know, this is, I suppose, where we're at now are these groups of people understanding how blockchain can actually empower them.
I put that question back to you. Do you have an example of where you've seen social impact happening in the fashion industry? Because we had a really good conversation about the future of
No,
fashion.
I mean, the fashion industry is notoriously one of the most wasteful industries in the world. So you have this sort of dynamic at the moment between the big Louis Vuittons like trying to get, or Nike or whatever, trying to get onto the hype, and then the sort of real side of it, if I understand it correctly, and I'm really no expert, I came here to learn rather than to talk because I'm really not well placed for that. But from what I understand is that if somebody's working in Rana Plaza or whatever, that from the moment you produce your raw materials through the whole process, if you get a certification of provenance, that would mean that the people who are producing it are well treated. Is that sort of the idea? I mean, maybe you know.
Yeah, so as you say, it's quite subjective at the moment. No one's locked it down into tangibility, but my dad was in the rag trade, vintage, so I grew up in like piles, tons and tons and tons of clothing in the factory and flying around different Thailand and seeing this at scale. And so when you zoom out, I suppose, it really is the problems with the structure. So if you look at like mass clothes, I think in England, there's 8.5 billion unused clothes in everyone's wardrobe. So all of us together have contributed to 8.5 billion wasted cash just sat in our wardrobe in the corner, don't wear it. And then when you compare that across the whole world, the production of fashion, so they're taking materials in different like production zones, all these brands, Zara, etc., pumping out fast fashion on this yearly cycle, double yearly cycle. And like, I think LVMH burns bags when it doesn't sell them.
Burberry,
Yeah, so
they even had to stop the law,
yeah, so they're very aware of this like fake scarcity cycle and what they're doing. And like, I suppose in a philosophical opposition to that, if all of the designers owned a hypothetical blockchain network, and then all of the materials were upcycled for those designers, so people could come into the shops, gift the material, that would be on chain, those designers could use them, there could be second-hand rental, you could actually remove that whole like branded LVM guys out the way, just move them out the way, and this sustainability, recycling and production loop own itself and dictate itself in the same way that those shareholders do for profit. So when LVMH sits there and they're like, let's reduce some factories and sell some more stuff and we'll make another 4.2 profit this year, those designer networks would be able to choose to do that, but hopefully for their own benefit. I think, and then not in the fashion, but in the arts, there's a thing called Terra Zero. These people from Sweden, geniuses, and they bought a forest, tied it to a trust, so the trust owns the forest, and they signed it off to a DAO that self-perpetuates itself, so it can sell off some trees to self-fund the growth of more land and the planting of more trees. But they wrote it in an algorithm that it will always buy more land and plant more trees than it could ever sell. So they set up an automated forest that will grow. So like mechanisms like that using a blockchain would be helpful. We still need to think of this. So, does that help?
Thank you. I've got a question to the panel, and it's a very, very simple question. We've seen last year digital assets, digital fashion starting to grow. You've had some major events like Miami in November that had a big focus on digital fashion. What do you see as being the major trends for 2023 coming through from what you've seen so far?
Okay, so I come from the notion that In digital fashion, the genres within digital fashion have yet to be determined. So you've got digital fashion that is a digital twin of something that we recognise part of a collection. We have digital fashion that's more fantastical, whimsical, and potentially could be more on an entertainment level of digital fashion. We don't know. There could be more therapeutic fashion. So again, when we're talking about this, we never talk about kind of in the here and now. It's always thinking about what's happening in the next 18, 24 months. But in terms of the trends, I think what we're going to see is a more segmentation of what digital fashion is, that bigger brands are going to become more sort of articulate in what they want their brand to look like as a digital collection. The other genres will probably become, how are they going to be published? What big platform is going to want to partner in with them? Like we're still, digital fashion has been the best vehicle for the metaverse. And that's why it's really absolutely so advanced. But there is no structure really on the type of fashion that's in there. And I think that it lacks fashion criticism, it lacks a critique around what it all is. But that's what I'm kind of predicting. There will be some sort of categorization around fashion.
Yeah, I echo that. I think we're going to see much more in terms of avatars, in terms of our digital identities being explored. I think we're going to see much more of that with big brands that are exploring those narratives. I'm thinking a lot about Metaverse Fashion Week, which is happening in March. I'm thinking about the Vogue collaboration that's just happened with Snapchat, where we can wear pieces from the past on our digital bodies. I'm also thinking about how our virtual bodies might evolve in terms of body upgrades, in terms of digital garments, for example, with the Sapiens Collective, where I'm wearing robotics couture. I think we'll see much more of those trends happening in the future, and I think the next generation of designers that are creating these experiences, and that all of the big brands and fashion houses are looking to bring that talent into their studios and into their design houses, are fully aware of what the future of fashion is. And I think the digital side is going to be huge, and we're going to see so much more of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think on top of that, I think the creative use of technology is going to be explored more in this year, especially cross industry, right? So say, I would say real time will be a huge topic this year, and how you blend into with your digital twin at the same time while you are in front of a camera. That would attract a really big group of people that is still maybe can't access it now, but it will be more approachable this year. And say a lot of the Pack company, for example, we did a collaboration with Samsung, so they implemented our digital looks to their camera, so people don't need to download an app to access it. So it just eliminates a lot of boundaries of how people can, wear it. And for example, the Nick Knight collection you were talking about is more about it's more about from the fashion perspectives. So a lot of creative thinking and creative processes promoted by a lot of industry pioneers, and then those cross kind of collaboration can really push this industry forward. Yeah.
Cool. I think firstly, what all of the younger generations are coming up with, all the innovation spaces, is going to far outpace what some of the early people in the scene or what has currently been done. So that's super innovative there. And I suppose in terms of practical things that are coming out, Polygon is actually emerging as quite a strong digital fashion one between Flow and Polygon. A lot of the clients, a lot of Adidas, Nike, JP Morgan, a few others have chosen Polygon to release a lot of things this year. Nike Swoosh. I'm not a huge fan of Nike myself, but it's a massive force in the market. I'm an advertising boy, so I always have to remember the direction that Nike sets for us all. But their Nike Swoosh, their DAO mechanism, and what they're going to do there with their dunks is going to be really interesting. And I think it's going to bring a lot of people a lot more people to the market. And there's also a cool metaverse we worked on with some clients in America, Wilder World. It's quite cool, it's coming out soon. It's like full Unity, glistening graphics. Some of that pops, check that out too.
Yeah, so I guess you're talking about early adoption as well, with the prediction of like everything else, which is serviceable road to market. And so I think the sports industry, you can see what NBA just released something last night, which is like in real time, a scan, and then you're in the game as one of the players. And sports industry is one of the strongest early adopters in general for the finances in that industry. And usually the sports industry has easily collaborated with the fashion industry when it comes to garments. So people like Nike will continue to try to explore that angle. Nike made $180 million last year in revenue from digital commerce, and they will just try to expand using their outlets of distribution with the sports relation with the sports world. And we'll see more of it. But as a business, we want to push our products more to the music industry, because there's definitely a lot of adoption in the music industry for the potential for metaverse festivals and concerts is enormous. And it's one of these areas where the intersection can also be enormous, across the industry.
Thank you very much, panel. Have we got anybody else that'd like to ask a question? Here we go. Come this way. By the way, beautiful outfit. I love it.
Thank you. Yes. Hi. Okay. My name's Warren Riley. Nice to meet you all. You look a little bit familiar, to be honest. So don't mind. Yeah. You might think maybe I've seen you thanks so much for the panel tonight, because it's been some really interesting points and conversations. The last point that was made about music festivals, I think is very, very, very valid. I've gone to lots of experiences. I think Boomtown's probably one of the biggest ones I can probably think about, where like digital fashion, digital film, narrative, everything is just around you the whole time, but you're still in a physical world and experience. So this leads me to my question. How best do you guys think that we can approach the bridge between the physical and the digital, and how do you think that will impact our relationship with the digital world? Because obviously it's the future, but we are all physical beings that live in a physical world. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be one of those people in like Inception that's like plugged to a computer for the rest of my life and sucked into the metaverse. So for me, I'm more interested in the experiences, as I said, like, digital technology and, different kind of like immersive experiences are part of my physical living life. But yeah, I'm just interested to hear how you guys think that'll be applied, or what you want to do to kind of bridge that together.
Thank you.
Best outfit this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Best question. Love your energy and your vibe and everything you're speaking about. I was one of the exec producers on the Metaverse Music Festival last year, and I got to work with pop star, singer-songwriter Nina Nesbitt. I don't know if anybody will know who she is in this room, but we took her into motion capture technology. We had the opportunity to create an avatar for her. We put her in the Artifact Ferocious sneakers, dressed and styled her in digital fashion, where she performed in an underwater sea world at the world's first Metaverse Music Festival, which I attended. But I also attended that with my friends, and I'm with you. I think it's going to be a hybrid experience whereby we connect with digital experiences, but we're also gathering together and experiencing that content with one another. I also got to work with the DJs, A-Skills and Crafty Cuts. I don't know if you've heard of those two DJs, but we also created their avatars, and they performed and closed out on the Hex Days in Decentraland, again tagging them to motion capture technologies, but also hosting a real world party where you could experience the metaverse collaboration that they also did in the real world. So I think to your point, I think it's going to be a mixture of hybrid experiences. I'd much rather be in person in the real world than in a headset. Although I work in the metaverse and spend lots of my time inside virtual worlds and spaces, I think there is a need for community and people to be with one another, but also having the opportunity to connect in virtual worlds and spaces from anywhere in the world, I think is also really beautiful and powerful. We also connected at London Pride Festival on the biggest out-of-home screen at Piccadilly Lights last year, with the spatial experience and the Decentraland Metaverse Music Festival, that we connected to a real world event with millions of people attending London Pride. So I think we're going to see much more of that, but I'd much rather be in the real world.
Yeah, I think everything is just connected, like what Kelly just said, and I would say a lot of things like now people are still really used to dressing physical stuff, right? So there's like a process for people to kind of like getting used to it and then accept it and then love it. So it's gonna be like I think it's gonna be a curve that we're getting there. So physical product, they are like when we produce it, we have to think about like how do we make it real life? Like what is the material? What is the techniques behind it? We need to find manufacturers and all of that. So when we create digital, we add a lot of functions to it. So for example, like a brand came to us, said, all right, we want to make this headpiece to something sparkling, something glowing, that we can add a lot of functions to it and make it more interesting. And then when you are online, when you social online, and when you want to, like maybe something that you want to go out for one night and you don't want to own it, like wear it every time. So something that is so unique that you want to showcase yourself on social media, for example, that can bring a lot of things to this. So I would say there's a lot of creativity part that can be explored more. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm like a very spiritual person, basically, so I'll come from that answer. I think like inherently, if we create an AR digital metaverse world, this is like probably going to be evil if we don't tweak this. It's not actually a great fundamental. So, but I think if you look at who I perceive as some of the most innovative people in the human population at the moment, and look at, again, I came out of interest of the transhumanism gang, out of curiosity and theatre, and studied my way through it, asked lots of questions, and I think some of the ways that they want to reanimate society, reanimate themselves, change proportions, I think this linking with the digital in the future and the AR, like helping expand people's identities, I think that's going to be really intrinsic. You can already see like Balenciaga crudely tackling the fetish lines, or people are trying to take things from the queer scene at the moment. It's starting to become a trend, actually.
That's been happening for decades.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. It's very
That's
fun.
a good point.
But I think as this next bit of it evolves in unison with AR, we might have some really interesting and hopefully psychologically gratifying answers.
So the first thing I must say, if you did make the outfit, then to answer that question, I'll take it one step further to invite you to join a new project that we're working on, which pretty much is focused on exactly the subject on how does digital and IRL coexist. I think we have chosen to bring some kind of ethics to what we do. Infused in everything that we are within the space is about conscious creativity. So by its own very nature, it means we're constantly examining why we create things and what the afterlife of what we're creating could be, which is where the AI comes in. But yeah, we're working on some current cross-collaborative music projects, which could be very interesting. And by its own very nature, it has to be a twin, or where the identity starts from your IRL, but then leads into its own life and takes a life of its own. to socially impact other lives, create equity, and generate equity for itself as a project. And that would be both, multiversal, if you want to use this word. So you're invited to join us, to be part of the creative team. If it's something that interests you.
I had just one more comment as well, if that's okay, if I could possibly. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for all the answers. The other thing that I've been thinking about a lot, I'm really fascinated and always been very inspired by the past. And I think that with everything that's happening, obviously there's so much focus on futuristic fashion, future activity, what we can do, blah, blah, blah. I think that a lot of people are also kind of missing a trick here, is that I think that this could also be such an amazing thing for us to explore our past and untold narratives, different community, how different historical fashion looks were made, or different identities that have not been explored, or etc, etc, etc. And I just feel that actually, obviously in terms of immersive experiences, I'll just give you an example. So this time last year I went to the Bridgerton Ball and it was amazing, got to wear an amazing outfit, met amazing people, but the best thing about it was that it was such an immersive experience, and they incorporated, I wouldn't say it was AR or anything, but they had a lot of digital things that were happening in terms of just, film, screen, and things that would interact with different characters. And so, yeah, since that experience, it's been making me think a lot about also how we can link to the past and how that can also be integrated in this, because I think everything that we see, it's kind of like future porn almost, but and I think that it'd be really interesting to see what this could do with exploring the past narrative as well. Any thoughts on that as well?
I love this question as well. Thank you for asking it. I'm a curator for a new Metaverse experience, which is going to launch at Metaverse Fashion Week. And I've been working with curators from around the world, and we've been looking at fashion from the past and from archives that you wouldn't necessarily get to see in museums. So we've taken some of these iconic pieces from collections and museums and institutions from all over the world, and we're digitising them to bring them into a metaverse experience where you'll be able to see them for the first time. Thank you. And I want to invite you to come and be a part of this, and we must speak afterwards. It's going to launch inside an Unreal Engine game experience that we're creating at the moment with my studio Artificial Rome, which are based in Berlin. And we're digitising 10 pieces with a studio called Alter that specialise in taking garments from the past and bringing them back so that we can experience them and learn about them. So taking those archives is something that I'm extremely interested in and doing a lot of work on, and I think what you're talking about is so relevant and interesting. And yeah, I'd invite you to come and experience it, and we must speak afterwards. I hope that was useful.
That was a very good answer.
Thank you very much. As I look from last year to this year, I see a large change, a tidal wave. And it's been made by the enthusiasm of a lot of people from last year, like our panellists, that have actually come forward and basically led in their fields, and also be inspired by everybody in this room. If you're fundamentally looking at where fashion is going, it's expanding into dimensions that we never envisaged last year. You are the pioneers. Everybody in this room is a pioneer. And as a result, I urge you all, give the panel a round of applause. They've done a fantastic job. If you've got questions, please come to them. But we all make it work. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.